We're on example 2 of completing the square. Remember, completing the square is a way to solve a quadratic equation. So I got m squared minus 6m equals 247. So one way to do this problem is you could subtract 247 and make it m squared minus 6m minus 247 equals 0. And then try to factor that. The problem is you need to know the factors of 247. You need to know numbers that you can multiply together to get 247. I don't really know that off the top of my head. Obviously, I could play around with my calculator and eventually figure it out. But you could just solve this by completing the square and not worry about that. And that's what we're going to do here. So we got m squared minus 6m equals 247. So to complete the square, you take the b term. Remember, these are all in ax squared plus bx plus c form. The b term is the term in front of the variable when that's not the x squared, that's just the x, or the m in this case. So the negative 6, what I do is I take that negative 6. I got the wrong color. I take that negative 6. I divide it by 2. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. And then I square negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. And that's what I'm going to add to both sides of this problem. So what I did was I did negative 6 divided by 2, and then I squared it. And I got 9, and I add that to both sides. So now I've got m squared minus 6m plus 9 equals 247 plus 9 is 256. And now I can factor this. So if I were to factor this, this would be m minus 3, m minus 3. Basically, whatever that was divided by 2, negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. So it's minus 3. If it had been plus 3, we would have put plus 3 there. So this is m minus 3 times m minus 3. If I foiled this, I could confirm it's going to give me that. Because my outer would be negative 3m, my inner would be negative 3m. Add the negative 3 plus negative 3 is negative 6, so that works. And then for my last term, negative 3 times negative 3, positive 9, that works. And this still equals 256. So what I'm going to do now is instead of writing this as m minus 3 times m minus 3, I'm going to write it as m minus 3 squared, and that still equals 256. You could skip this step right here and just go from that step to that step. So now I can solve this. And what I can do is, since this is a perfect square, I can take the square root. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And remember, when you take the square root of this side, it's going to be plus or minus. It's going to be positive or negative. So it's going to be plus or minus 256. So then the square root and the squared cancel out. Now this is just going to be m minus 3. And this is going to equal plus or minus the square root of 256. This actually comes out even. The square root of 256 is 16. So I actually don't need the approximate here because I got a whole number. I got 16. So m minus 3 equals plus or minus 16. And now I can solve both of these. So my first equation is m minus 3 equals 16. My second equation, or m minus 3 equals negative 16. And then I just solve both of those. Add 3. I get m equals 19. Add 3 here, I get m equals negative 13. So you can see my answer there is m equals 19 or m equals negative 13. And if we go back to the beginning of this problem when I said, oh, we could have subtracted 247, we could have ended up with this. M squared minus 6m minus 247 equals 0. Say we did that. We then would have had to, in our heads, try to figure out, all right, what times what gives me 247? The answer was 19 times 13. That's pretty tricky. I don't know my 19 multiplication tables or my 13 multiplication tables. So this is a good one where completing the square actually ended up making the problem easier than trying to factor that huge number with the 247 there. So our answer was m equals 19 or m equals negative 13. All right, we got one more example coming for you.